Pittsburgh Steelers fans, Matty P, Shannon White here for another episode of the Steelers Global Perspective. This is a quick snap episode. We're talking the top 3 positions of need that the Steelers still have on the roster. And if you caught our last show when we talked about wide receivers, you're probably going to think it's wide receiver. Maybe we'll say wide receiver, maybe we won't. You'll find out on this episode of the Steelers Global Perspective. All right, Shannon White, I'm going to throw to you. You can kick off the draft acquisition board, whatever we want to call it, for the top positions of need. What is your number one position of need that still sits there on the Steelers roster today?
Well, I figure we'll keep it to 3. Mm-hmm. Now, do we want to try to have a consensus that we agree on 3? Or, because in my opinion, it's still cornerback, defensive line, and wide receiver.
Yep.
That's my 3.
Okay.
And we can talk about it in any order, however you want to do it.
Interesting. I go, yeah. All right. We'll go with those ones. All right. We'll go with those ones. I like that one. Actually, I've got one difference. To you, but you go with your number. Let's go through your top 3, and then I'll give you my opinion of what my other one is that you haven't said and where I think it slots. We'll do it.
Okay. Well, I'll start out as we've said on a previous segment. Is I think it's cornerback. It's still the where I'd really like to see them bring in somebody.
Yep.
Whether they acquire somebody off, that gets,
chopped,
released, or I don't want to see them trade per se, but because they have a lot of potential. Everybody knows I'm very high on Corey Trice, Darian Rush, and we've got guys that, Beanie Bishop. Mm-hmm. They just signed Anthony Everett. They filled the room with talent.
Yeah.
But again, the only one that's proven out of that is Everett, because he has, he's played for the Ravens for years. So we know what he can do at the pro level. But if you bring in a guy, let's say the price drops and starts getting before training camp, and you could get a guy like Gilmore, some of my other podcast partners like Howard.
Yeah, I mean, people are a bit anti this, but I like Trey Herndon. I like Rashad Fenton. Those 2 guys are like 27 and 28. I wouldn't mind even mind an Eli Apple. I know the other guys that we talked because J.C. Jackson, who I think is kind of done in the NFL, but J.C. Jackson, Dory Jackson, Stephon Gilmore, Patrick Peterson, Steven Nelson, Quan Williams, Kareem Jackson, Xavier Howard, as you talked about, they're all there. But the thing is about all those guys is they're all over the other side of 30. And
and most of them guys are done.
Yeah.
I mean, you can bring them in a pinch late in the year, kind of like last year where they had to bring in Miles Jackson and some other guys to help them, because all the injuries and stuff.
Yeah.
But you don't want them all season long. They're not going to make it. No. They're going to be exposed because they've lost 2 steps, 3 steps. Yeah. So, but cornerback is a position that so I don't know if we want to talk about the slot position or wait till we have position battles discussion coming up soon. Because if I'm not careful, I'm going to get into that right now. But that's why I'm going to stick with I like the talent they have, but it's unproven. I'd like them to add a guy. And right now, I mean, I watched Gilmore a lot last year.
Yeah.
And to me, Gilmore, you could trust him on that for that cornerback too. And that way you could use Jackson even in the slot more. Because I don't really think there's a slot guy out there that I trust per se, unless because you already got Anthony Everett.
Yeah, I like Trey Herndon. I think Trey Herndon could be good there. I think Ryan Watts could be really on the slot. I think Deshaun Elliott could be good. In terms of how they could use him in the slot if they do, and we are going to sign Justin Simmons, which I'm still not a fan of. only because I think we've got other holes. But I agree with you. That's probably going to come up in one of the segments that we're going to record after this one.
Yeah.
All right. What about your next position?
Well, I still think they need more defensive line help. We've had a lot of discussion about Cam Hayward, his contract.
Yeah.
Him, I don't know if I made a lot of people happy last night, but I just think you do not pay 20-some million a year for a 35-year-old defensive lineman coming off that injury. I wish that he was willing to work with the Steelers and make it a more team-friendly situation, because these are decisions that teams that are trying to go from rebuilding to contending, you can't hold on to guys for nostalgia. And I'm afraid that people are, we got to keep Cam Hayward because they're nostalgic about him. There's no guarantee he's going to be back to Cam Hayward of 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you overpay an older guy, you're just wasting money. And that's things that the top teams don't do. And it's tough. But those teams, how many guys retire a Kansas City Chief? How many guys retire a San Francisco 49er? How many, honestly, it don't happen anymore. And we're going to have to accept that as Steeler fans, that the smarter GMs move away from these guys. And Cam Hayward needs a Super Bowl to solidify his Hall of Fame chances. He might have to go elsewhere to get it. And I would not give in to demands when there's other needs. But everybody's like, well, they got the money. Yeah, but you're not paying your quarterback zilch this year.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to change.
Yeah.
It's going to change, because if Russell Wilson isn't the answer and Justin Fields ain't the answer, they're going to have to do drastic things next year to get one. Yeah. And it's going to be expensive, whether it's draft capital or it's going to be contractual, but it's going to be expensive. So, in my opinion, they need, we liked Brandon Fisk. We liked different guys in this draft that we thought they could get, but they got such great value with the picks they made.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen to be a defensive lineman until Logan Lee. And he's
I like Logan. I
do, but he's a project.
Yeah.
He's your Brett Kiesel type project.
Do you know my point with Hayward? And I don't want to, because I want to get to the third position. My point with Hayward, as well, as if Ogunjobi wasn't on the roster and we had another young stud, you could rationalize fiscally doing Cam Hayward's side. But with the cost of Ogunjobi and his performance, which is also a problem because I think Hayward will play better this year than Ogunjobi will, that it's again, you start to fall into this luxury concept. But again, this is why I'm very high on Dean Lowry and why they acquired him. I am very happy about that.
I think Lowry is great depth. He's proven depth. He's a proven professional. That's the word I used for Watts last year. Of course, we lost Watts. But Watts was a proven professional. He would do his job. You can't count on Loudermilk. You can't count on Leal. But you could count on Watts. Now you have Lowry, who is a proven professional. And you have Fahoku, who I hope can give them some in the rotation at nose tackle. Because Benton is not a nose tackle. I think he's going to have to play there again this year, but it's really not who he is. But the guy that I would really like to see that's out there in free agency is Calais Campbell. Because
is he done, though?
for a 1-year rental, because here's what I hope happens. They could bring in a guy like Campbell, because I don't trust Ogunjobi. You'd have Hayward and Benton and Lowry. These guys have Campbell in there because I don't think Hayward's going to give them a lot pass rush either anymore. I think that's where we're going to see the decline because he's always been a power rusher. But I think he's lost that little bit of quickness that helps him get there. But if the inside linebacker position of Landon Roberts, Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, and whoever else, Mark Robertson, whoever, if they solidify that center, they'll be the ones racking up the numbers. We don't need it to be the defensive line.
What would you say to a fan out there that says, why are we re-signing Cam Hayward? Why are we not re-signing Cam Hayward, but we're going to take a chance on the 38 to 39-year-old Calais Campbell?
I think he'll be cheap, and I think he can be part of the rotation and give you quality snaps. I mean, he's not going to cost $27 million, folks.
No.
Cam Hayward is.
Yeah.
And if Cam Hayward is what he was, even if he's what he was at the end of last year, he's a power player, a run stuffer, but he didn't offer him any pass rush. I don't know if anybody paid attention, but when he come back, he didn't offer him any pass rush.
No, I think it was. I see both sides of the coin.
And Campbell not only is really good at tying up blockers and slowing down the running game, but he's hard to throw over. I mean, the guy is in the top 5 in deflected passes every year. He is hard to throw over.
Well, it's got an extra 2 inches on Cam, I think.
Oh, God, he's 6'8".
Yeah.
He's got more than 2 inches.
Yeah, 2.5. All right. Well, what's your third position to wrap this one up?
Well, wide receiver. And I know we've already talked about it on another segment, but I like what they have. They have a lot of variety in that room. I don't think people realize the versatility and the creativity that a competent offensive coordinator, and I think Arthur Smith is, how he can utilize all these different guys. The problem is they don't have another guy that can emulate what Pickens gives them. Now, you're not going to get a guy at this stage that has anywhere near his talent. But I'm talking about the guy that can be that wide receiver one, that can block, that can it was size, somebody 6'2" or bigger. That right now they got a lot of smaller guys. And I like having a variety. But you need somebody else on the outside. And that's why I've mentioned Corey Davis because of his experience with Smith. They've already talked about that they're talking to Michael Thomas. And then the trade options, there is a couple out there. There's also, is it Slayton from the New York Giants?
Darius Slayton, yeah.
But the problem is he wants paid.
Yeah,
and
well,
I don't know what he would need.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it can't be anybody that's going to take targets away from Pickens.
Interesting. I got one position that was not being said, and every time I bring this up, someone invariably tells me I'm an idiot, but that's fine. I'm a big boy. I can handle that one. And that's tight end. Now,
I knew you was going to say tight end.
We've got people go name all the different tight ends that the Steelers have. Name one of them that you'd be happy to get 30 targets to a year, other than Pat Freiermuth. And it's crickets. It's absolute crickets, right? It's not Pruitt. Pruitt's a blocking guy. It's not really.
Pruitt's actually might play a little H-back even.
Correct, right? He's more of an H-back fullback than he actually
like Connor Hayward, yes.
Correct. Which is why when he signed, I said, could this be the end of Connor Hayward? Because there was a rumor out there when Arthur Smith came that he didn't like Connor Hayward in the team. He didn't see the value of him, which I always thought was funny because Connor Hayward obliterated Atlanta in the 2 games he played against him. But anyway, regardless of whether that's true or not, or hearsay or rumor. But then you've got Rodney Williams, who really the guy is good for a couple of games a year. That's about it. Darnell Washington, we don't know. And that's everyone always tells me, but Darnell. I'm like, but we don't know. The guy had 10 targets and 7 catches. Yeah. We do not know.
He ain't done it yet.
And we need someone that is a true wide receiver. Not wide receiver. We need someone that's a true receiving tight end. Now, we didn't go there in the draft. We probably should have. We probably should have traded back in and do it, right? We probably should have gone and got someone last year, knowing that Pat Freiermuth would be off contract. There's not really, if I have my ideal sort of guys, I think we are going to have to wait till the cut stage in camp. There's definitely no one out there that was an undrafted free agent that's not with a team that I think is worth it. The guy I like the best would be Tyler Croft, who has played in the AFC North. He's a free agent right now, but I think the Steelers would be better to wait a little bit longer before they can see who else gets cut from different teams, particularly after the June cut deadline. But this is a guy that could be a really capable backup from a receiving perspective. His best year was 351 yards in 2017. Otherwise, he's average, he's about 100, 200 yards. But to me, he's another all-round tight end, and I'd rather trust him with getting 20 targets a year than I would getting, than I would any of the other guys on their roster right now. That's just how I feel about it. But again, I think there'll be a tight end that's cut. I think Conklin's coming up with a void near next year. I think there's another guy that's got a cut that's a much better tight end as well that's got a void near next year. Just trying to pull it up. Juwan Johnson over at the Saints, but again, he's more of that H back as well, rather than a receiving tight end. There's a lot of other guys that might come onto the trade market as well through the course of camp. But I do still think a receiving tight end, particularly in the Arthur Smith offense, and given what we've talked about wide receiver, I do think another pass catching tight end is a hole on this roster right now.
I think that you're going to see a lot of seam work from Washington. And I think that Smith's going to work him down the seams with a head of steam. It ain't going to be catch. You're going to run 3 yards, turn around, catch it, and try to drag somebody. As we know, the Steelers offense last year had no imagination, no creativity. I think we're going to see Washington utilized that way to clear the middle of the field a lot of times for Roman Wilson. And I think the Roman Wilson will prosper, but it would shock me if we don't see Washington's numbers that he gets 20 to 30 targets this year, minimum. Because I do think that he's going to be – his size alone and his catch radius in the red zone is going to, I think, be something that was not utilized at all last year, and I think it's going to be focused on much more this year.
Yeah,
I'm all for picking up another tight end, but I'm like you. I think it's going to come more, maybe even after final cuts.
Probably.
That they can bring in somebody that, will surprise everybody.
Probably. That's exactly it. All right, well, that's going to wrap up this segment of the Steelers Global Perspective. Join us for another one that we've got coming after this. I'm Matty P, as always, with Shannon White. As always, go Steelers.